Wakati unaenda mkutano ya politician, you tape them. Muna tape mtu akiongea, mtu akiongea hate speech kutukana mwingine, una capture, mnatumia sisi. We will deal with anybody who is going to bring insecurity to this country. Ama namna gani? So long as I am the CS in charge of national security, we will never allow our country. Hatuwezi kukubali damu imwagike kwa sababu ya kura. Ninyi mnaweza kubali? Hatuwezi kubali. Hatuwezi kubali matusi. Kwa location yako watu wakikuja baraza, vijana kwanza mnaeleza, unajua vijana ndio wanakuwa carried away na politician. Wanapatia pesa ndio wabu wengine. That is not accepted. And if it is possible, politician wafanye baraza zao tofauti so that mtu asitukane mwingine. Kwa hivyo I want to appreciate you, appreciate what you are doing, lakini ile kitu nataka watu wafanye kazi na watu wawe very fit. Naona wengine wenu mnakula viazi sana hapa. Mnaona vile mimi niko? I'm a marathoner. Mimi nakimbia. Na tutaanza kuintroduce marathon ya chief of every county. Simba nipigie makofi kwa hiyo. Tuta introduce every county, we have a marathon of every county ya chiefs. Na wile chief atashinda, tuta promote. Na ile mtu atakuwa mwisho tutafuta. Ama namna gani? Ndio we reduce people, we reduce strugglers.
All right, whatever happened to that vision, I think was a good one for the chiefs, the marathoners there, so that they can reduce also their rotund bellies as well at the end of the day. CS there and Kaiseri, the late, just imploring the chiefs as well to just be active when it comes to the general election and looking at the issue of hate speech as well. I'm holding court this morning with Elders Member of Parliament, Eden Canaan. Also, we do have with us Dr. James Nyikal, and I've created first time also with the Senator of Makueni. This is Dan Manzo, and now we're joined also by the Deputy Leader of Majority in the National Assembly, Owen Bayer. We want to tackle just briefly the issue of the universal health coverage and what it does portend for you. This was what was headlining the front page of the Standard yesterday. Tighten your belts as Rutocare comes at an extra cost. And it says health burden with a new formula for contribution to Medicare starting. Employees will have to pay more to realize the president's dream of affordable health care for all. And this story is tucked away, or was tucked away on page 2 and 3 of the Standard yesterday. Just, you got also a simulator of a pay slip on how that will be adversely affected by this at the end of the day. But they always say, yes, that no pain, no gain, right? Dr. Nyikal, so you can take us through this. And first of all, what does it really portend? This was debated by both houses, from the Senate, the National Assembly. Were there I's that were jotted there and T's that were crossed? Are you happy, first of all, you as a medical practitioner with this? Does this make it any discernible difference in comparison to the Uhuru administration, where we have also the community health volunteers? Is it something new that we're experiencing right now, or we've seen it before? So there's nothing new to write.
In principle, the intention is good. If people can actually get good health care without paying directly from their pockets at the point of delivery, it's always good. And actually, if you reach a situation where you get acceptable level of care and you don't pay directly, it actually does improve your income, even at family level. There are many families that are just getting by. Maybe they're in business, they earn something, and just they get a catastrophic illness and they just are wiped out economically. That will do it. But what is happening is actually, to a large extent, it has been the same script for a long time. Starting from Kibaki government. I'll give you the differences. Kibaki government, what he did is actually said the indigents are too many, because if everybody pays, that is the basic thing with social health insurance, and that is the big bill. Of the 4 bills we have passed, The most significant one in financing is the Social Health Insurance Act now. Then the difference with what Kibaki did was paying for the indigent. Everybody should pay, but there are those who cannot pay. So what was to be done with them? It was felt that the amount of money involved would be too large. So that, in that context, it did go forward. He actually didn't accede to the bill at all. But actually, it is that bill that internationally, when presented in Geneva, brought forth the universal health coverage. So, although Kenya didn't benefit, many countries that moved with the spirit did well. When we came to Uhuru government, I think we moved forward. We went with the old bill, which is the current NHIF bill, and we tried to now implement it in bits, and therefore the pilots that were done in the 4 counties, the pilots actually showed that it will actually improve healthcare, more people will access health, but we didn't put in enough infrastructure to make it go. To infrastructure, human resource, health products, drugs, and so on, but largely financing, and then the governance to put it together. So although the pilot showed it can work, we were not able to scale up the pilot. Now what is being done now is a very, what I would say is a very brave effort to actually say we are going to do it and pass more laws. What of these laws, the new ones are just basically 2. It is the Primary Care Act and is the Digital Health Act. The Social Health Insurance Act is to a large extent in the same format as the National Health Insurance Fund we have now. The big difference with it actually that has been brought is that we have higher payments, so people are paying higher. In principle, I don't have a problem with that if the money is going to be used properly. And then the other difference is the claim system, which I have an issue with, because we have made provision that the claims can be done by the private sector. And my fear is that if that level is not controlled and you take all the claims into the private sector, you can actually have a catastrophe. It has happened in Latin America when they are doing managed healthcare, when a lot of things were put in the private health sector. They literally carried money from the government coffers and didn't do much. So it is something we raised. We moved it from shall to may. Me, I didn't want it at all because if that is the only way we want to deal with corruption in NHIF is to move the whole system from the authority now itself to the private sector. There is no evidence in my mind that the private sector itself will not be corrupt. So that's something that we have agreed, and we have passed it in law, and we'll see how it will work out. And as Honorable Kainan said later, sometimes it's at the point of implementation that you actually see that. The other element that is a bit of a worry, but that is transient, is that to a large extent, in practical terms, all those who are employed in NHF now can consider themselves jobless because they will all have to apply anew. My worry is that if you have such a large number of people running in an institution for 1 year, as the new authority is taking up, knowing very well that I may not be there, that transition, I thought it would have been done differently. In many cases, what is done, the people are retained, and then the new authority now goes to comb out each one and literally remove them. But if they are assured that you don't have a job, when this kicks in 1 year, you may or may not come in. That transition was a problem. Those are really the main differences. If you come to Facility Improvement Fund,
right?
I'm happy with the. Let me just do this.
Don't bunch them together so that at least we can actually tease them out briefly. Especially,
so if you come to Facility Improvement Fund, basically, this is something that worked from 2005 onwards, when we actually felt that the facilities should actually ring-fence their funds and they could be funded directly. And let me tell you, in principle, I'm happy that we have brought it back, because now, if implemented as it is, then the health facilities, level 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll have committees at 2 and 3, and 4 and 5, we'll have boards. The only difference that I've seen that we would have liked done and we didn't do is that the membership of those committees and boards need to representative and should have the people in there. And the other thing that I didn't like for level 2 and level 3, we said the signature, the main signature of the account will be the accountant at the county. Now that worries me a little, because this single accountant will actually be authorizing the money for all these facilities, and we have a danger there. When we used it in 2005 onwards, what we did, these facilities used the money, but there was an accountant, that time it was the district, who went round and monitored.
If we may just surpass all those administrative processes, because my interest is, how does it affect Mwananchi? That is what they want to know.
Oh, okay.
They want to know the nitty-gritties about the accountant.
Let me tell you how it affects. If done well, and you do 3 things, they must make 3 things work. You must have health workers. You must have the infrastructure and equipment. You must have the drugs. The main thing we have done is the payment mechanism. So if all that, and with the increase in what we are paying now, there should be enough money. And if we can remove corruption, and these people are there, and people can walk in and get the drug, the treatment, they'll be okay. Another failure, even if you have the money, do we have the health workers? Do we have the drugs? Do we have the equipment? And that has been difficult in all the 3 regimes that have tried it. I've not seen any change we have made now, including what is at KEMSA, that will make that different.
Thank you.
So it is a good principle.
Thank you.
Likely to work.
All right.
We have to do some amendments later, but the devil will always be in the details of implementation.
All right. I can see Dan Mazo is really yawning prodigiously. I wonder why he yawns like this every morning. Maybe he needs to tell us why he's yawning. Anyway, Dan Mazo, I wanted to know, first of all, are you happy with, because we see Governor of Kisumu decrying the fact that we sent the Cuban doctors away way too quickly, and there is a gap of expertise, according to him, that they were actually, plugging that particular gap. First of all, were you happy? I know maybe you've not really been or encountered their services as well, but in terms of just the counties and how they brought the expertise, where we had also, a dearth of medical doctors here in the country, and then they came in. Do you think this was a quick off the mark decision that the government had made in terms of just making them go back?
First, I think the Cuban doctors were very useful to the country generally, not only just, in different counties. They are trained doctors, and they came in with a lot of professionalism, although language was a challenge. And it's like an exchange program where even our own doctors learn. And I think Dr. Nyika will agree with us. Although we train a lot of doctors, we lose a lot of them into other jurisdictions. We have, for lack of a better word, our own doctors have not been very happy here, in terms of working for the government, in terms of working for the counties, and even private practice. So most of them have ended up in the regions, taking that labor away and that expertise to the region. Some, to the southern part of Africa, others to Europe, and even to America, when they go for further studies and become experts in certain areas. So you find there has been insufficient of some of these particular intricate processes. Like when somebody has an accident and there is a scan, doctors who can read a scan are actually very scarce in the country, and that's particular expertise where we have shortage. But I don't think it was right for these Cuban doctors to be sent away. If they are not needed in one county, other counties will find them very, very useful. And to me, they have really served Kenyans well. And I believe in that. They have also learned, and when they go back to their country, they'll go with a new experience. The Caribbean climate is almost same as a tropical climate, same as a climate here, and the tropical diseases are similar, and I think we need more doctors in the country. We are losing doctors, we lost a lot of doctors to corona. That has not been taken care of even in the whole world. We really need more people going to medical school, becoming experts, and coming to take care of our community.
Yes. Right, let's hear from Owen Bayer. Good morning, good to see you.
Nice to see you. Sorry for coming late, but I would like to comment on the Cuban doctors. I think I would like to say this, that Kenya sometimes is a very strange, Kenya is a very strange lot. When we tried to bring in the Cuban doctors, the previous government tried to bring in the Cuban, there was hue and cry.
There's so much resistance.
So much resistance about Cuban doctors coming to Kenya, taking up jobs. Why do you want this? And you know, it was an egg in the face of the government then. I am surprised that now people are nostalgic about them, that they don't think it was right for the Cuban doctors to leave. But that is Kenya for you. But also, suffice to say that in Kenya we have actually many doctors in this country that are not even employed, that are seeking employment. I sometimes receive calls from doctors who have graduated from the University of Nairobi or other universities, and they're saying, help me get a job as a doctor at the county government of Kilifi, or because doctors now are employed by county government. And you have very many of them. There are many doctors right now who are actually on practicing on locum or earning on locum only. They are not employed. So for us to again go back and say, you know, the Cuban doctors, probably on the basis of expertise. But I think this country has now trained enough doctors who are actually leaving the country to go to work elsewhere. The problem which we need to look at, why aren't Kenyan doctors interested to work in government? What are the issues? And if you want to dissect that, you realize that we have a lot more labor issues when it comes to employment of doctors. There is no county in this country that has not faced either a strike or a threat of a strike by doctors in this country because of poor remuneration, poor work conditions, and you know, a lot of labor issues. But if this country stabilizes labor issues, and I hope the guys at the Ministry of Health will actually take this in, and also the governors and CC's health take this, then we will not have a problem in terms of shortage of doctors. The second thing that I've had a friend of mine talk to me about is a lot of counties have allowed their doctors to go on leave, study leave, a lot of them. The doctors in the hospitals, but they've been allowed to go on study leave, and they go to train. When they come back, they come back as consultants, and they're employed as consultants. So you have a hospital that sometimes has more consultants than resident doctors, and you have an issue there. So we need. I do not believe that doctors should be moved from county governments to the national government. I don't believe health as a function should be taken back to the national government. I don't believe that. But I think there is a need to stabilize the health sector in this country so that we are able to share the resources that we have. For example, Kilifi County, where I come from, might have a radiologist. I don't know, that's doctors that do... Yes, they have those. But Akwale might not have. Mombasa might not have. But this doctor will not even put enough hours in Kilifi. But that doctor, because it belongs to Kilifi, will just sit there and do nothing while Mombasa is suffering. We need to have a way to share the resources that we have even within counties. That is why these economic blocks that are formed by counties need to look at how do we also share human capital, human resources that we have. And Kwale, as a county in the coast, has Msambweni as a good hospital. They have Kwale as a good hospital, and there are many doctors there. But when you're a doctor in Kwale, in Msambweni, you are just tied to that small village. While your expertise is huge, your resource is huge, but you're tied to that small village. If you have to come and practice privately on locum in Mombasa, it takes you kilometers and kilometers to get to Mombasa. But yet, you know, this one doctor could have been on a payroll such that he can practice in Mombasa at the Coast General Hospital. He can also go as a doctor in Msambweni. He can go to other hospitals, so that we share these resources. We would not be looking for doctors from other countries if we shared the human resource that we have in this country in terms of doctors. And that is a problem that bedevils the health sector in terms of human resource. For example, I remember we used to have a problem with anesthetists. These people who put you to die when you were being operated. That is my small definition. There are very few in this country. Very few in this country. They're very useful resource in the health sector. But then, how many do we have? And how are they utilized? How is this resource shared across the board, such that we are able to use the human resource in terms of medical services in this country well and better? Kenyatta National Hospital, as a referral hospital, the referral hospitals that we have, has a huge human resource. Mombasa, the Coast General Hospital, huge resource. But you find that a hospital nearby, in a nearby county, lacks that one specialist.
Indeed.
But they cannot use him across the board because he is owned by Mombasa. And if he has to go there, that hospital must pay him as a consultant or must pay him as a private. So we need to find a balance. I know Dr. Yikali is an expert. He was once one of the, I read somewhere that you are one of the best directors of medical services. Actually, PS.
Well, I tried.
He tried. But probably he needs to give us thought about this and probably bring a legislation in Parliament on how to share the human resource in the medical field, so that we don't have a dearth.
But why would
resource.
we share human resource? Because just, if you may have back to February this year,
yes,
there was a very interesting article in the dailies, the Daily Nation as well, where I was just trying to retrieve that I knew we have 4,000 doctors who are well trained in this country who are unemployed.
Yes.
And this is a very telling story there, where it began by saying a sober 6-sentence paragraph was the final communication that Dr. Fred Mwoki penned before he died. It was not a will, but a suicide note addressed to his sister. He was sorry that the pressure of life had knocked him down. He was a rising star that many expected to shine bright, a hard-working young man whose hopes for a better life was dimmed by a society and government that neglected him and many like him. I'm sorry, sister. I have a lot of pressure, debts and loans from my friends. I am sorry to disappoint you. I don't have money in my account, so don't bother checking. I'm deeply sorry, sister. He signed off before taking his own life. Mwoki is said to have struggled for months to get a job after graduating from medical school, but all attempts hit a snag. A dark cloud hung over him. The pressure from society sent him to the pits, where he had no strength left to fight. He needed to provide for his loved ones, but with what income? He needed to live his dream of restoring people's life, but who was to give him that chance? He needed to earn his doctor title, but it remained just a name, his skills underutilized. Mwoki, unfortunately, is just one among an increasing number of Kenyan doctors who are taking the dark route to the abyss after seeing their hopes for saving lives and a rewarding career dashed. And it goes on to say, according to data by the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, about 7 medical doctors in the country have died by suicide in the past 7 years after they failed to get an opportunity to practice medicine. After grueling 6 years in medical school, doctors usually look forward to saving lives, but those coming out of school these days wait longer than usual. About 4,000 trained doctors in the country are jobless, 4,000, despite both public and private hospitals being overwhelmed by few staff. We're talking about sharing resources with thousands of patients who turn up for treatment on a daily basis. And it goes on and on to say. And I think when we talk about dying by suicide, 7 doctors in 7 years, and we have all this.
You will professionalize. Let me politicize.
Politicize.
There are two aspects. First, let me start with the two acts: digitization and universal healthcare bill, and the other one. I think, as the professor has rightly
the primary healthcare.
The primary healthcare. Professor has rightly put it. First of all, Kenya is a member of the global village. That's why the issue of digitization is so critical, so that issues to do with telemedicine, issues to do with record keeping, issues to do with felt, not only felt, and also utilized in every village. So that's critical. The issue of universal healthcare, I think, is a universal issue, as the name suggests. Kenya being a responsible member of the international community, we are obligated by law, by international law, to have universal healthcare. But it's also political. You remember what happened to Obamacare, and the politics of Republicans and Democrats, and eventually how many attempts were killed. So generally, it depends with the perspective of the implementer. But I think what right now we have done is, and we must commend the government, is they have decided to expand the horizon of thinking and call a spade, and put aside the fear of the unknown and implement this. As to how it will work, as to whether it will benefit Kenyans, is something that all of us must work very hard and ensure that it meets the very objective, and that's what I think the professor has alluded to. Now, coming back to the Cuban doctors, it is purely a populist decision. I come from one of the most disadvantaged regions, actually, and I'm glad that Professor, when I was at the university, 30-something years ago, 35 years ago, we barely had even one student from our region actually was doing medicine. Today, in our own village, from my own village, I have over 10 who are unemployed, who are on my neck looking for a job. The benefits one Cuba doctor actually was given will employ 10 Kenyan doctors. Look at the mismatch. And in fact, even professionally, the Kenyan doctor was more equipped. And this is in line with the UN report actually on our HR capital. So I'll call it political. And it didn't meet the objective. We just got 1, I think 2. I don't want to demean anybody, but I think if whatever they were offered would have been given to 15 Kenyan doctors or 30 Kenyan doctors, we'll have had a doctor in every ward in Wajir. So we have 2 doctors. What they are getting could employ 20 doctors. And Wajir has 30 wards, meaning each of the wards, at least 20 out of 30 wards will have a medical doctor, which is not the practice right now. The Kenyan medical field, and I know they have their own rules. There's one thing that lacks, and this is something that's been applied all over the world. There's something called annual curriculum conference. Students are prepared or encouraged to do courses in tandem with a projected job market. Even the medical field is so diverse. So like, don't just go and say you want to do surgery, dental surgery. You want to go and do this. You must have a basis for you to do that particular course. Is it because of the job market? Is it because of the personal life? Is it because of your professional like? There are so many. These things are missing. So it's like you have so many people who are qualified, they have done, who are qualified, or who have completed medical school, but they have done one line.
It's a general practitioner.
Yes, general practitioner, and that makes competition actually very stiff and difficult. Now, coming back to what we ought to do as a country, and I think this is the bit. We can export these individuals. Kenya, because this is something that we have not utilized. Israel has done, Egypt has done, Turkey has done, India has done. Why not Kenya? We can't have 4,000 qualified doctors unemployed when many countries don't have even one qualified medical doctor. We have not given them an enabling, conducive political environment to export their talents. This is one thing that we need to invest in, and that can be the number one foreign exchange. And I remember in 2007 to 2013, I introduced a concept when I was the chairman, Defense and Foreign Relations. I told them about the issue of diaspora desk. And the first thing that came to the mind of the Mandaris of Ministry of Foreign Affairs was to say, no, these diaspora people are normally anti-government. We cannot allow them near our missions. Say, no, can we try them? I forced the recommendation to say, we must have a directorate of diaspora. Today, our number one foreign exchange is from the diaspora. And every mission has a diaspora desk. So we need to experiment some of this. So, Professor, what do we need to do this? Instead of just sitting in boardrooms and doing, we need to dissect this. What is ailing this particular sector? Do we need the service of these people? Can we extend the services to the neighboring communities as part of our gift, as part of our social responsibility, but they also get paid? I think these are the areas that really we need to, you now being a veteran, you are a politician, you are a former public administrator, you are a medical practitioner. I think if I were you, minus the politics aside, this is one area that we need to push and assist Kenya so that once and for all, this medical field is properly professionalized, properly managed, well-resourced, and Kenyans get the benefit either through service delivery or through resource mobilization.
Okay, we start by saying we have 4,000 doctors.
Now there are more.
Who are unemployed. Why don't we export them? My question is different. We have 4,000 doctors who are unemployed, and in our facilities, people are queuing for hours because they can't see a doctor. That's what the issue is. The doctors we have, we still don't have the population doctor ratio that is required. What we lack is the political will to actually let the medical services work. Okay, you say I did well. Why I did well as the Director of Medical Services? I had a voice as the Director of Medical Services, and what we advised was done. People knew more, even now people know me more as the Director of Medical Services than as a politician. Because, even as a PS, because at that time, all ministries, the technical director is actually the person who knows the ministry. This means that politicians are talking a lot about issues. They are talking, but doing is the directors. We had a situation in 2000, 2002, 2003, before I even joined, where there were doctors unemployed, and the Ministry of Health advertised for doctors. They had a huge shortage, and only one doctor applied. We went down. I was there, 10th chair of Kenya Medical Association. Professor Meme was the Director of Medical Services, later PS, and he said, Nikal, this is something we have to sort out. And we agreed on payment. All we did was to improve the payment of doctors. Do you know, doctors started moving from the private sector into government. It is documented. Now, you said that young man who committed suicide. What about the young man from Kisii during COVID, who had been employed for 5 months, had not been paid, got sick? His father was trying to raise 200,000 shillings so that he could be taken to ICU. He died. It's how we treat our health workers. Why do we have many doctors and nurses doing locum in the private sector? Because it is cheaper to have a health worker or anybody on locum, because you just pay them for the day. You don't have retirement issues to look at. You don't have to look at health insurance to look at. And I've talked to the private hospitals, and they say it is cheaper. So we are using these people as cheap labor. And we have tried to actually, even in the current, the Health Act 2017, I remember I actually worked with the late Dr. Machage that we had to put the Human Resource Advisory Council, which has not been operationalized up to now, so that you would have an issue where, regardless of where you are in this country, as a health worker, you will be employed on the same terms. You will be promoted on the same terms. But that has not been implemented. We have lacked political will to address. Now, the period 2003 and 2008, when things improved, actually, even if you go back and look at the financing in health, that may be the period where we had the highest proportion of the budget going into health. So we prioritize. That's why I was saying all these four laws were put in place. We can have them, but if we don't look at the human resource element, we don't look at the drugs element, and we don't look at the equipment element, and then you look at governance, how do you put this thing together? It won't work. That is all actually we did in 2003 and 2008. And actually, there was a strategic plan. We call it reversing the trend. And I can tell you, if you go into the data, the health indices in this country started actually improving 2000. It has actually been improving up to now. And so the laws were put in place, like the Digital Health Act. I like it because it will help us in sharing. Let's say there is somebody who can read X-rays in Mombasa, and there's none in Makueni. If you go to the digital way, you can actually use that. But Dibal, all these things are okay, but the human resource is what will make them work. The healthcare financing, the money that is there, if this UHC works well, and the money that is come is not stolen and goes into health sector, and then you can even employ more doctors. Because what has been happening before is that the money that went to the counties, it was competing with everything. What these laws are doing, like the FIF Act, is retrying what we did in 2000, so that the money will go to that facility. It is managed by those people. Therefore, once the county government has put the money there, it cannot pull it back and go and use it on roads. And then you have a committee involving even members of that community. It worked. We actually demonstrated, because when we started that 2004, 2005, it was started partly. The Treasury was not keen to release all the money to the facilities at once. So some facilities were managed from money from the district accounts then, and some were managed directly. There was evidence that the money that was managed directly actually worked better. But why should we be afraid of that? Schools run their money. Secondary schools, they have a bazaar, but audit is done later. So why would it be that a hospital or a health center, or that is level 3, cannot run their money?
Right.
So we do that. So the issue is, we must be willing to put money in health, and we must let technical people make decisions. The nature of technical people, whether they are doctors or not, is if they advise you and you say so, they fold their hands and what. Now, this thing of Cuban doctors, you've said it correctly. One doctor was being paid more, so they worked better. And it's not the first time, Dibal. In 1981, we actually brought doctors from Egypt. Exactly the same situation. And indeed, we can do it, but first of all, we must have the political will. 2, we must be willing to put money. 3, we must listen to technical people and let the governance be governance, and try to remove graft.
Right, so
it will work.
So let's just talk about the issue also of job losses, because now we're talking about NHIF, where we are seeing the specter of losing jobs that will be happening at NHIF. KEMSA, we can see 400 staff will be losing their jobs as well because of Rutocare being implemented at the end of the day. Let me come back to Dan Marzo, because he's still yawning. I wonder what today is. It I'm having a samosa.
Just give Dan Marzo coffee.
I can count, the number of yawns I've seen this morning. I'm wondering, hey, what is?
He was in Mavoko.
Is topple over 30? Yeah? I'm checking counts of the yawns.
It was a long weekend.
Don't ask too many things.
It was a long weekend.
Maybe I want to say you need medical care with this Rutocare. You're yawning. It could be something that is more deeper than what we think. But anyway, I'm just talking about that because of the job losses. And you being lawyers, I wanted to ask, because we have also, aside from what we're talking about, the NHIF and Rutocare, we have the Attorney General also who's decrying lack of staff in his department. There is no state council. What will be actually leading to this. If you may just look at some of the dailies as well that are highlighting this. And I know if you're talking about scarcity of lawyers, and maybe also in his office, I don't know if it's a government position or on recruiting, we have Honorable Owen Baya, who's coming up with a draft bill. It's called the Advocates Bill, that wants to open the borders for everyone from Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. If you're a practicing lawyer, you can actually be employed here in Kenya. So the free entry is there, so you can practice anywhere that you want to go. I don't know how you're receiving that, and you can just contribute so that at least I can tell me you're yawning this morning.
Thank you, Dibal. You know that idea of there's something called the Eastern African Law Society, and that idea has been floated before, and you have like you have an Advocates Act, and we have also the Law Society in Kenya, and for you to be admitted to the bar to practice in a country, it means then if I go to Uganda, for me to appear in court in Uganda, I must also be a member of the bar in Uganda and also a member of the bar in Tanzania. So there's Eastern African Law Society can do that, but there's been a problem with the market. How the choice of a lawyer is a client's choice. It is a client who chooses that I'm going to be represented by this lawyer, and the Attorney General's office having less lawyers, is a serious tragedy for the country. The Attorney General runs the biggest law firm in the country, which defends the government. And the government has been sued in all manner of situations, and the state councils are the ones who represent the PSS or the government ministries across board, so that every other time there's a suit, a lot of times, even when you go online, you find that the Attorney General is not properly represented, or the government is expected to be represented by the Attorney General's office, and therefore lawyers have to appear for the Attorney General. Sometimes matters have been postponed simply because the party which is supposed to be represented by the Attorney General has no appearance. And for that matter, I think is a matter of human resource in his office. We have enough lawyers in the country. They need to advertise for the jobs, and I'm sure enough would want to go and work for them. And by experience, even when dealing with the lawyers from the Attorney General's chamber, they are very well researched. There are days Muthoni, will conquer the courts by being very, well researched, well resourced, brilliant, and the courts will, in a lot of times, listen to her, and she will change the way judgment is. And this is defending the government. And if the government is not defended, like all these land cases you are seeing, the Minister of Lands has to be defended by a lawyer from the Attorney General's office. And many other scenarios, where even the government is an interested party, and mostly in the land cases actually, government is an interested party. Where government was doing projects, like the case of Rutocare Dam, the Attorney General appeared because the government is the employer, and without the approvals of the certificates by the government engineers, actually the subcontractors cannot be paid, and the contractor cannot be paid. So when there is a suit, then the Attorney General has to give the government position. So that's very important, because if you don't defend the government, it's going to lose in a lot of these suits. It's going to lose a lot of monies, ordinarily, which are not budgeted for. Where government has been sued for negligence, or for murder, or for loss of life, even in those cases of hospitals, the Minister of Health has to be represented by a council. Although now they have legal officers who also can go to court, the Attorney General's office is very, very important in terms of legal advice to the country, to the ministries, and in terms of giving direction, on a lot of very critical legal issues. But most important, government be represented in court. If it is not represented, then the other sides will have their way, and it's not good for the government.
All right, Owenda, you want to talk about your advocates bill, and as you've said, is it part of the East African Legislative Assembly that Law Society, not the Assembly? I think that is diametrically different, isn't it?
Yeah. I have a very interesting bill.
I remember at some point we were discussing this on You Are Not There, and we were saying, why is Owenda raising that particular bill? He's not a lawyer himself.
I have been, a lot of barbs have been thrown my way on this because of this bill by a lot of lawyers. But also a lot of lawyers agree with me that the Advocates Amendment Bill, which I'm sponsoring in the National Assembly, is a good law. Because we have very many advocates, young people who have trained in Rwanda, others have trained in Tanzania, others have trained in Burundi. But when they finalize their exams, have been admitted to the bar in the various countries, they come to this country, they cannot practice. Now that makes it difficult for our young people to get integrated into the Kenyan system. And these Kenyans have asked this question: how is it that if you are an advocate from Tanzania, you can actually be allowed to practice in Kenya, but a Kenyan who has graduated from Burundi or Rwanda cannot practice in this country? And the East African community, protocols say that countries will need to realign their curriculum and all that so that we can have an exchange of human resource and professionals. But we have a problem, as it were today, that our young people who have studied, a lawyer who has studied in India can come and practice here, but a Kenyan who has studied in Rwanda cannot come and practice here, and that is a problem, and that is what I intend to cure by introducing this law. The lawyers that are against this law are scared that a lot of their market will be flooded by lawyers from Rwanda, from Burundi, and their jobs will be taken. But they are not looking at the other side of it. Kenyan lawyers are very good. They will also have an opportunity to practice in Rwanda. They also have an opportunity to practice in Burundi. They have brought in a lot of issues that, Kenya is a common, I don't know, the curriculum here is different from Rwanda because of the difference in the law that they practice, But we will have a huge market. The East African community market is huge. Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, and all that. Now, if our Kenyan lawyers have an opportunity to practice in this country because of this law that I am putting in place, we are actually opening the many borders and frontiers for Kenyan lawyers to go and practice in these many countries and make the money. Also, you realize that a lot of these countries, apart from Tanzania, are landlocked. And they do a lot of business at the port, and they have a lot of litigation, a lot of cases that emanate from business. And Kenyan lawyers are very well trained in terms of business law. They will go, commercial law, they will go into these other countries and make the money. So this law is a reciprocity. We opened the borders here in Kenya for them to come here. We also opened the many other borders for them to go. And therefore they have an opportunity to practice in these other countries and make money. But after having said that, if you allow me, why do we have these problems that you say, okay, state council are not enough, but then you also go, other Kenyans are being laid off in this and this? We have a problem of how we aggregate human resource in this country. This time we are sucking people. This time we are saying there's a lack of it. You go to the medical field, you say we have over 4,000 doctors that are unemployed. But if you come back to the Ministry of Health and ask them to do a human resource analysis within the ministry, they'll say we have a deficit of 7,000 doctors in the medical field, and yet we have 4,000. You go to TSC, they will tell you we have a deficit of over 50,000 teachers or 100,000 teachers, but we have over 200,000 teachers unemployed in this country. We need a serious relook at the human resource and distribution in this country, and what are the gaps and what are the needs of the country and what is available there. We need to stabilize human resource. Otherwise, Kenya is actually exporting nurses to Britain. To Britain. It's exporting nurses to Britain, the UK, a lot of nurses, and Canada and other countries. But you go to the village clinic, you don't even have a nurse. You don't have a nurse. And you ask yourself, what is the problem? You go to...
the problem is compensation. We need to take a short break.
Yes, I want to come to that aspect of compensation.
Yes,
I want to come to that.
Well-catered.
How do we treat our human resource in this country? And that is where the problem is, and I would like to address that when we come back.
All right, when you come back, of course, we shall put that under the cost of living as well. Just looking at what is on the front page of Business Daily this morning. The shilling is on a free fall. It is now official. It is hitting 150 as it is, and Beck are selling it at 154.95 to 157. This is a 17.7% value lost against the dollar since January, and this continues apace. What does it portend for us here in the country? Even as we are aware that the ongoing debate in Nakuru is getting heated right now as far as the cost of living is concerned, with information coming in or coming at hand right now. We take a short break. When we circle back, we shall be looking at the cost of living moving forward. What does it portend? Where now we have the Kenya Road Boards who are intending now to actually raise the fuel levy by 5 shillings because they are attributing this to inflation, and that also is costing them when it comes to road maintenance. So from 217, look at 5 shilling more being added on top of that, and also the vagaries of the dollar as well that will have to bear the brunt. We take a short break.